How does your horse learn new things? How does his behavior change? Whether you want to teach him a new skill, whether you want to improve something, maybe a new movement under saddle, you want to have a better lead change or a better extended trot, or you just want him to stand still at the mounting block when you're getting on. Or maybe there's a behavior that you want to change. So maybe he sometimes will buck a little bit when you ask for the canter, or he paws on the cross ties in the barn. In today's video, I'm going to introduce you to some basic behavior concepts that will help you understand how your horse learns and how the communication between horse and human really works. I'm Callie. This is my weekly video show at CRK Training, and today I'm going to be showing you part of a lecture that I did for a group of students at Cornell University last week on how horses learn. So there's two main types of learning, and what you can think about as we're going through this is it's not so important that you have to remember all of these behavior terms, but just remember the concepts and maybe some of the examples that I'll give along the way and how these could relate to what you're doing with your horse. So there's two main types of learning that we use the most in our work with horses. There's non-associative learning and there's associative learning. Non-associative learning, think about that as kind of learning that can happen in the background. One of the terms that's really popular right now in horse training is desensitization. And desensitization basically just means that the horse is getting used to something. So there's many different methods that we can use to desensitize, but the type of learning that happens, it kind of happens in the background. So if you get a new tractor for your barn and you park it out next to the field, maybe the first day the horses freak out as soon as you pull the tractor up there. They run to the other end of the field, they're snorting, they don't want to come up near the tractor, but probably within a day or maybe even within a few hours, they're grazing right next to it and they're completely used to it. Basically what happened there was just a simple process of desensitization because that tractor was close to them and eventually they just got used to it. The same process can happen if maybe your horse is afraid of fly spray. So you start giving him a few treats every time you're doing the fly spray. You start with spraying it away from him. You gradually work a little bit closer. Maybe you spray a little bit on his upper leg, then eventually the shoulder, and then soon you're spraying his whole body. So that would be an example of what's called counter conditioning. You gave a little food, you systematically worked with the spray, got it closer to him, and eventually he gets used to it. Sensitization is what happens when it kind of goes the other way, when the horse learns to be more concerned or sometimes more afraid of something or even just more aware of it. So we want our horse to become sensitized to certain cues. So maybe if you're doing some tricks or a little liberty performance, you want your horse to kind of pay attention to different signals that you might give with your hands. You can also become sensitized in a not so great way to maybe the clippers. So you're clipping, your blades start to get hot, all of a sudden you reach a spot where there's not a lot of hair and it burns him a bit, and now all of a sudden where the clippers were fine, now he's going to be scared of them because he started to make a connection between that pain that he felt with those running clippers. And that would be another example of sensitization. So when we're teaching the horse, we use another process. We can use first classical conditioning, which is basically the horse kind of connecting responses to different things or different events. So the classic example of this is Pavlov's dogs. I have a cute little cartoon here of Pavlov's dog actually training Pavlov. But the idea here was that the sound of the ringing bell, the dog would connect to food is coming and they would start to salivate. Our horses do this all the time. You walk in the barn first thing in the morning, go into the feed room, and all of a sudden all the horses are moving in their stalls. You might have some that start to paw or kick because they're anticipating the food. There's also operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is some terms that you may have heard are positive reinforcement or pressure and release. So operant conditioning has reinforcements. Those are things that the horse likes, or removal of the things that the horse doesn't like, and they're going to encourage the horse to increase what he's doing, to do more of whatever it is he's doing. And then there's also punishments which are going to encourage the horse to do less. So punishments are going to decrease behaviors. That's where if you use a whip and you smack your horse after he does something, that would be an example of a punishment. Now, for today's for today's little video, we're just kind of starting to understand what these are. Of course, there's pros and cons to all of these, and punishments, especially positive punishment, is often something that we want to stay away from in most training. But there's also what's called negative punishment, which is you take away something that the horse likes. So maybe you were going to feed him, and then all of a sudden he came and he was a little bit too aggressive when he came for the food, so you close your hand and you take the treat back away. That would be an example of a negative punishment. Now, the most important thing to understand for today's video is this concept of shaping. And I like to kind of refer to it as more of the last thing because it helps with understanding what it is. Basically means that when something has worked for the horse, he's going to do more of it, whether it's something that we intend or something that we don't intend. But a lot of our riding, for example, and improving how the horse moves when we're riding happens through a process of shaping. It's looking for incremental improvements and building on those. And I'm actually going to be talking a lot more about the idea of shaping and how you can relate this to your own riding in the workshop that I'm doing right now from the Balanced Riding course. The Balanced Riding course is my program where I teach about basic horse behavior, how that relates to our riding, how to understand and go a lot deeper in these training concepts that we've been talking about, and how these training and behavior concepts apply no matter what kind of method of training you're doing, whether you do natural horsemanship or whether you do more traditional types of training, or even if you're just riding at a lesson barn, you can start to understand more of why your horse does the things that he does and acts the way that he acts. So if you would like to join that free workshop, go to the link down below. You can sign up there. The workshop's totally free. It's only open for a few more days as of the time that we're doing this filming, and then the Balanced Riding course will be open for enrollment after that. So I would love to have you join me there. And before you go, I'd also like to have you leave a comment down below. And from the examples that I gave here of different types of learning, what's one that maybe you've experienced in a recent interaction with one of your horses or the horses that you ride? Think back to the last lesson that you had or the last time that you were with your horse. Was there any change in their behavior, anything that was new? And what do you think it might have been related to? Was it a process of desensitization, of sensitization, or was it maybe a pressure release? Was it a negative reinforcement? Did you give a reward, a positive reinforcement, or did you use some type of a punishment to decrease the behavior? So I look forward to seeing your comments. I hope you can join me in the workshop, and I will see you back in the next video.